So good morning, everybody, and welcome. Happy Tuesday, first of all, and welcome to the latest in our series of Ship Management International webinars. We're going to be looking at the whole issue of succession planning within the global shipping industry, and this is quite an important issue, really. As the industry starts to move forward, and there's a lot of changes and pressures being put on shipping as it drives forward in a new digitized and smart world as well. But the webinar itself will discuss the importance of succession in the global shipping industry. We'll examine the challenges and opportunities that face the industry as it sort of embarks on this journey. And it's quite an important journey because it not only embraces what we've got now and actually making sure that we have a continuous flow of good leadership within the industry, but it's also linked inextricably with attracting the right talent in and the right people into the industry moving forward. What commitments does the shipping need to make really as far as this is concerned? What are the game changers? And what can the industry do to ensure that it can attract the right people, as I said, to grow the industry profitably and sustainably? So we've also, just a little bit of housekeeping before I introduce our eminent panel of speakers. We'll have some delegates coming in as well who may well be firing in questions. Today's debate will be lasting about an hour. It may well go over a couple of minutes it normally do. It is being video recorded and it will be edited and then put onto the Ship Management International website, sent to all of the readers of SMI and covered editorially in the magazine as well. And yes, so any questions you want to put forward, we have a Q&A at the bottom of the screen as well as a chat facility. So please feel free to utilize those. So without any further ado, I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves and to talk for 2 or 3 minutes on the whole issue of succession planning, and what are the important aspects as far as they're concerned. So Michael, I'll go from left to right on my screen. Michael, over to you first. Introduce yourself and appreciate to hear your thoughts.
Thanks very much, John, and thanks for allowing me to attend. And it's really great to see a very diverse panel here, which will definitely offer a lot of different perspectives to this very important discussion on succession. Briefly about myself, I'm calling in from Copenhagen. I've been within the maritime industry for some 30 years. Had the joy of doing a dual track career, both going seagoing to rank of captain and in between also going in shore and picking up all functions, core functions in shipowning and ship management. And was actually part of a talent development program, which we can touch on a little bit later. So I've covered more or less all functions within the ship owning and ship management, but also been working for BIMCO and the Danish Ship Owners Association. So I also have the association perspective on human sustainability and HR. My take on succession, I think my opening remark is I don't think we're doing it very well as an industry. I think that's my first comment. I think we have to realize that we're in competition for talent with other industries globally, nationally, company-wise. I think we have to recognize that a lack of succession planning, which to me ties in with talent management and ability to attract, develop, and retain talent, is a business risk. And if you get it wrong, it will definitely affect your company performance. It will increase your risk. It will drive costs up. So I think this is business critical. And my take on it is also that we need to have this much more anchored in line management thinking. That this is not just an HR responsibility to drive these improvements and discussions and succession planning. This has to be owned by line management. That's really a strong recommendation and also experience for me. I've seen too many companies, even blue chip big companies, that constantly are forced to go external and find talent for critical positions, which despite of having a huge talent pool internally, could have covered internally, but they don't have the systems, they don't have the strategies, they don't have that thinking of creating those internal career paths. So I really look forward to the discussion today, and thanks for allowing me to be part of this, Sean. So back to you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Michael. Some very, very good points there, which we'll pick up in a second there. Let me come on to Claire. Claire, can you introduce yourself, please, and your thoughts? Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. With pleasure. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Clare Pike. I head up the HR, the Human Resources function at Bureau Veritas, Marine and Offshore Division. Unlike Michael, I am relative newcomer to the maritime and shipping industry, joining this division 6 years ago. So I am, if you like, a thoroughbred, though, in human resources. That's where I've spent my career. And I suppose my joining the Marine and Offshore Division at Bureau Veritas has been one of those signals about that change for the future, and really leaning into people are what help our industry turn, and how do we make sure we're placing that focus on the people bringing value to the industry, the organisations that we work for, and also themselves. As you know, Bureau Veritas, one of the oldest classification societies in the world, we're still absolutely passionate about working alongside all areas of the industry to ensure we're shaping a better maritime future for all stakeholders. And part of that dimension is around thinking about having the right capability, the right talent for the future. And even in the 6 years that I've been privileged to work in this organisation, in this industry, we can really see some significant changes coming along. When we look at profiles, that we weren't talking about with the volume that we do today, whether that is skills in digital, skills in all areas of sustainability, areas for growth, because for sure our industry needs support on the decarbonisation journey and that journey to net zero. So really broadening our approach and not forgetting our core. The majority of people we employ are marine surveyors, engineers, and how do we take them on that journey for the future as well? And that's part of succession and talent management. Delighted to hear Michael's comments about this isn't just in the hands of HR, this is in the hands of all our leaders, and I'm delighted to join the discussion today and share some thoughts. So thanks very much, Sean.
Thank you very much, Claire. Very kind, and some good points there, which we'll develop in a second. Let me bring in Martin. Martin, do you want to introduce yourself? And I'm sure a lot of people know you anyway, but please introduce yourself and your thoughts. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Sean, and yeah, good morning, afternoon, evening to everyone who's joining. I'll just quick introduction. I'm 22 years in the recruitment sector now, but the first 12 was outside of shipping. So a bit like Claire, my background isn't all shipping, but I have spent the last 10 years in the shipping world. So Faststream, as you say, hopefully well known, one of the most recognised and respected recruiters in the shipping and maritime sector, and we place people, externally, from seafarers all the way through to C-suite. So we're used across the board. My take on this and my perspective on the topic is obviously going to come from that recruiter angle, where we know that clients will have succession plans in place, but it doesn't always work out, and it doesn't always work out internally. So I think over the years, you may line up your protege, and that may be a year or even a decade in process, but all too often these days they may not work out for various reasons. Maybe that skill sets, maybe they move on to another company. So what we see from the recruitment angle is it's important, the succession planning is taking place, but you've got to be realistic still and look for those gaps and then potential gaps, and make sure you've got your strategy in place for bringing people in, so that it's not a panic buy at the last minute. Recruitment needs to be planned out. So there's obviously risks and challenges of external hiring, but we see the positives of fresh ideas, fresh skill sets, increase diversity potentially by bringing in people from the outside. So I'm coming from this recruitment angle. So yeah, my perspective, we see a lot of our clients with good succession plans, and they are talking about it at board level, but it doesn't always work out. So keeping that open mind and if you are going externally, making sure you're doing it well. So that's the angle I'll come at it today.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Martin. Again, we'll develop some of those elements. Guy, let me bring you in now as well. I know and appreciate your thoughts on this, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Guy Platten. I'm Secretary General of the International Chamber of Shipping, a trade body. And I suppose you start from home, looking at home, in the sense that we had an away day, a senior management away day a couple of years back. Actually, it was just after the first lockdown, and we could all meet together for a short period of time. And we looked around the room and realised we were all about the same age within a couple of years of each other, and it was quite startling. And but I actually find talking about succession planning to your senior team, it's not always an easy conversation, because some people don't want to actually face that they're probably going to leave the industry at some point. And it's actually having those difficult conversations, and Claire's quite right, it's certainly not an HR thing, it's a management thing. And to have that, and actually once you've had those conversations, you can then start planning accordingly. So we like to think now we've got a reasonable succession plan in place at this organisation. And if you look wider field in the rest of the maritime, I tend to definitely agree with Michael. I don't think we're doing it as well as we should be doing it. I don't think we're giving it the much thought as it should be giving it. I think we all seem to think we're going to go on forever. And of course, that's not the case. And so to me, succession planning is vital. We owe it, I think, as senior people in our organisations to the organisation. And that's the argument I use for my team, was it's not fair. You've got this high position. You can't just say, oh, here's 6 months notice now, I'm off. You need to think much more about that and have an honest conversation with you and your family about your plans. And then we can plan the training of staff accordingly. So a lot of rambling answer that, Sean, but it's sometimes easy just to focus on your own organisation and then look wider afield.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Guy, for that. Tanja, nice to see you. Could I ask you to introduce yourself and give your perspective, which is a little bit of a different perspective from some of the comments you're probably getting at the moment.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tanja Gullestrup. I'm the HR Director here at Pacific Green Technologies. I have a cross-sector experience within human resources. My original background is psychometrics, so that is the field within psychology concerning the theory and technique of measurement of traits, so aptitude, personality, emotional intelligence. And I quickly found out after 3 years of being in-house as a psychometrician at one of the world's largest test publishers that I wanted to actually implement and put these things into practice. So I've spent the last 17 years in HR across many different sectors, the last 3.5 here at Pacific Green. My interest is really strategically aligning with, at board level, understanding talent management, how we attract the right candidates, how we retain our star performers, and what does good look like, what does excellent look like, and being able to measure those and build those into a succession plan from board level, infiltrating down, so living and breathing. So a slightly different angle on kind of the more traditional HR. So what is my take on succession in the maritime industry? Like other industries, it's challenging because of the talent pools and restrictions on that. I see it as kind of 4 main categories, which is obviously the psychological aspect of it, the legal aspect of it, the financial, and the tax, and they all tie into who are your people and what are they doing for the business and how are they going to move the business forward.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Tanja. And we'll tap into some of those comments a little bit in a few minutes. Kuba, and then Raal, last but not least to Raal. But Kuba, can I get your introduction and your comments, please, sir?
Yes, thank you, Sean. Kuba, Szymanski, Secretary General of InterManager. listening to my predecessors, I was thinking, where shall I start? And I think my personal view and personal views are obviously all skewed because of personal experience. And I have to say that I was really, really lucky when in 1990 I entered the industry. 1985 was university, and then 5 years later I entered industry. I came across a very good company called Dorchester Maritime, Isle of Man, and for 17 further years I spent time there. And why am I saying that? Because Tanja, believe it or not, in 2002, which is 20 years ago, we did a psychometric testing of the best. And the idea was that we wanted to know who are the good guys and chief engineers in our company. And that's what we did. And I was one of those guys, not the perfect one. There was a long time horizon.
I think Kuba's got a bit of a bad connection there in I think.
And as a result of that, people were taken from sea.
Yeah.
How about now, Sean?
Keep talking. Probably put your video off, because then we can probably hear you rather than probably the best way to do it.
Sean, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Keep going.
Okay, then I'll start talking without video.
Yeah.
So there was a very good procedure. There was a promotion procedure. There was always something we could follow and tune to it as well. Do we have it nowadays? I don't think we do. And that amazes me, because 20 years elapsed and we don't seem to be doing that in shipping here. So a lot of shipping companies are actually training for the competitors, in my opinion. Is it good to do? I'm not sure about that. 1860.
Yeah,
you hear me well. 1860, Royals decided to go into the permanent employment, and ever since continues with that. However, we in shipping seem to be doing very well, just hiring people for the contract, hiring them. Yes, Sean, I'll stop at this time and maybe Raal.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Kuba. There was a little bit of sort of a distortion there, but hopefully the line will clear. Raal, let me come over to you there on your comments before we go into the general debate.
Yeah, thanks, Sean, and it's really great to be here and in such eminent company. Well, going last, I feel like you've always got to work out what extra you can add into it. First, about my background. So I have 20 years in making maritime e-learning and technology projects, essentially. So looking at filling in skills gaps creatively, I suppose. And today I'm working for Ocean Technologies Group as Chief Creative Officer, which means I look after a lot of the brand building and how we sort of reach out into the maritime community and bring ideas from the various working groups and stuff into what we do and shaping what we do, which is across learning and assessment, which I look after, fleet management and crew management. So 3 distinct pillars, but they all essentially place the people at the heart of what we're doing. So that's the area that we're in, is really looking at how we as we say, power the people that power world trade. And so within that, we look very much at the big picture. And I've been in various groups with various people actually on this call as well, where we're looking at the skills shortage that we have and the crewing issues that many of my customers raise with me. And for me, I think one thing is clear, that we're on a sort of an arc where we're needing more and more from our people, more and more talent, more and more sort of, not just the traditional skills, but also leadership skills, communication skills, empathy, those kind of skills as well. At the same time as crewing is under tremendous pressure. And it seems to me, having been in the business for 20 years and through various recessions, we've kind of there's been a haircut on each of those recessions, and things are sort of down really to the bare bones. And then guess what? We had what you might call a black swan incident with COVID, and then I don't want to go on, and we've been talking about it for 2 years. I'm not going to dwell on that, don't worry. But it's come in, put this additional pressure on, and of course global incidents like the war as well, putting even more pressure on. And what we've seen is we've kind of gone operating at a very almost at safe manning level. I know, Kuba, that's a subject you'll come in on, so I won't steal your thunder there. But we've got down to the bare bones, as it were, and we're not consequently very resilient to some of these things that are coming in. So I think we have to look at how we deal with that. We have to look at how we resource that and how we address some of these things. Michael mentioned that shipping is not good at succession. I don't think anybody's particularly good at it, because we tend to just focus on people, and roles morph around people. And then we look to say, well, someone leaves, we look to try and find another person like that, which is not a very sort of effective way of doing it. But shipping does have unique challenges to it. There are unique situations when you look. I talk a lot these days about culture and about trying to build company culture. It's very difficult to do that in any organization. If you move that to a global organization with regional offices, it becomes even more of a challenge. If you then have vessels where there's a micro culture on board each of those things, it becomes even more difficult. Then we look at skills. Again, look at the length of time it takes to create a good mariner, and all of the different things within that, the time that they spend in the college, university training centers, and then on board the ships in sea service, etc. And we have a very, very complex picture. So it's not going to be easy to solve, and we're going to need to hopefully we'll talk today about some of the initiatives that we could use to actually help with that. But I think fundamentally, for me, we're at a point in the industry where we need to have a bit of a mind shift to get to a point where we can really crew things sustainably.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Raal, and excellent opening comments there, everybody. And hopefully we can hear you a bit clearer when you come on again, Kuba, as well. So that's good. So just really as a pointer, just before we start the debate, to the panelists, if you want to, please butt in, stick your hand up when we're in the middle of the debate. We're all friends here. And also to the delegates coming in, please whiz through any questions that you might have. I'm going to start, Michael. I mean, you mentioned this point that we are not doing this succession planning very, very well. I'm going to throw that bit to Guy first, actually, and then I'm going to come back to you, Michael. But Guy, this is a big issue here, succession, and it's not just ashore; it's also on board ship, on board the sort of factory, the floating factory as well. Is shipping doing it well, or what are we doing wrong?
I was actually quite taken with Kuba's comments as well. I know it's a little bit distorted, but I think I got the general picture is there hasn't been a huge amount of succession planning on board ships because people just hire talent wherever a little bit. I'm sure that's a bit of an exaggeration, but nonetheless, that's been that sort of market to a degree about doing that. So it's I think it's about recognizing it for what it is and actually putting the plans in and the training and the mentoring that's needed. And I think those are often lacking, I think, in the organizations. And I look to myself as well. We've had to do a lot more management training than we thought. We hadn't really appreciated just what we needed to do to give the managers the tools to be able to have conversations with people, but also to think about how they're going to move up and forward in the organization. And I think that's the same on board ships as well. I'm sure in other organizations, and we heard from Tanja as well, doing the really best in practice, but I do think it's those honest conversations we have to have.
But Guy, I mean, I think shipping, wants to, be seen as an industry that can attract the talent of the future. It's competing with other big industries out there. Whether it's, the media or the IT or whatever. But it's still got a lot of selling to do, isn't it, to get the talent within and to apply.
I always say, joke, and how true it is, I don't know, that once you get into shipping, you never leave. It doesn't matter. It's impossible. So you get a new entrant coming in, and it's like, oh well, that's it. That's the rest of your.
That's them locked in for.
Like D was at Hotel California. But you can check out and never leave. But I think we do have to compete. I think we don't. In attracting the young talent in the first place, I don't think we really we sell sometimes how good and vibrant and inclusive our industry actually is, and I think we have an image problem that way. But I think that can change. I certainly extol the virtues, and I mean, I've had an amazing career, as everyone on this panel has had. So, you know, and I think it is good for a young person joining our industry, because there's so many diverse career paths they can go down.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the most incredible thing. But we need to sell that well, and to show that you can. I always think we are much more of a meritocracy than many other industries. You know, you can rise to the top, and that, I think that's something to sell as well, which is good. Certainly, it was in my case. I hope, you know, that you know, you can start as a deck cadet in the Royal Fleet Auxiliary and move up through so many interesting and fun jobs to do what I'm doing today.
Kuba, let me bring you in, and then Michael, and also let's keep an eye on the whole thing about succession planning itself, because I think the planning element is quite important. But Kuba, your comments.
Yeah, first of all, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Very good. So I just wanted to make 2 comments. Obviously, I absolutely agree with Guy here. We've got so many role models which we should be able to sell, and that should be selling very well comparison to other industries, but we are not doing that. So we've got an image problem. So Sean, maybe you can help us. It's you journalists, it's you PR companies who could get us together and actually sell it. Punch, 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 oomph. And we could do that. Now, Guy, I'm afraid I have taken on myself to have an exit interviews with people, young people who are leaving our industry. And I pick them up usually from social media when I hear them actually throwing mud on our industry. And they are 25, 26. I get in touch with them and ask them a question offline. Why are you so frustrated? What's happening? And we've got a problem, Houston, because we oversell ourselves a lot, especially colleges. Colleges are taking youngsters on board now without showing them what the shipping really is about. And they go to sea, and there is surprise, there is no internet on board. Internet they would expect. And here we go, there is one nationality on board among other nationalities. Nobody told them that. I'm British among Ukrainians. Oh, Jesus Christ, I don't speak Ukrainian. Well, maybe you should start learning. That's completely alien idea. Or I'm alone among Danes, and Danes speak Danish. Oh, gee, what can I do? Things like that, we are not doing very well. Are we fighting for talent? Yes, we are. But I think we are not treating youngsters professionally. We are not taking them as we used to be taken. I used to have a mentor. There was always somebody who would hold my hand and make sure that I'm going through all of this. Enough from me on this one. I just wanted to make a comment. Thank you.
Let me come over to Michael, and then I'm going to get the other members. And please stick your hand up if you want to comment. And I know Tanya's probably got some points there that she wants to push in there. Michael, just your views on this whole point about we're not doing it very well, but also, you know, we talk about strategy, and we talk, and I heard that a couple of times, you know, that needs to be in place. You know, what does the shipping industry need to do to actually have an effective succession planning strategy in place? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. And well, you know, I think for the benefit of this discussion, I've had the pleasure of working in an organization globally that did this extremely well, and then I've been working in the other global organizations which did it extremely bad. and so looking at the best practice here, if I could share that seen from my desk, is, you know, the organizations that did this extremely well, their strategy was it tied in already to the entry-level positions, if it was entry-level into office or entry-level into the seagoing track. And so it was about using psychometric analysis tools. It was about, you know, really making sure that the raw talent we brought in, both on the shipborne as on the shore side, were talent that we could build on. But then there was a strategy of building that talent from entry level throughout their careers and following them throughout their careers and expanding their capabilities by exposing them to different functions, different positions. So, and then giving it to the line management as a responsibility to be a net contributor of talent to the organization. And the line managers were measured on how well they did that as a KPI. And that was, again, you know, a part of their performance appraisal discussions at all levels throughout the organization. So what happened was that you saw suddenly that the entire organization was providing talent to not just the company, but actually to the entire industry. And this was also anchored within the board level as a priority. So I think, and I could speak long about this, but I just want to share, what I see as best practice here. So it's about having a clear strategy. It's about linking succession to talent management. It's about giving that responsibility to line management, but also having it anchored at a board level. And for that same reason, we just went live with a new board program targeting the maritime industry here in Copenhagen Business School. And a key focus in that program is precisely about the board's responsibility to have much more focus on their organization's succession and talent management, not just the CEO succession, but having the organization to be much more focused on that. So back to you, Sean.
I mean, as we start to attract the younger people in the industry. I mean, I've been in this industry for hundreds of years, and the shipping gets accused of being male and pale and all this sort of stuff. But then you start to see the youngsters coming through. The young Greeks are floating their companies on the NASDAQ. The shipping companies now starting to embrace, massive digitalization, innovation, looking at different ways of being part of the supply chain, etc. As these young, executives come through, are you going to see a complete, and you'll see it through CBS, through the MBA program that you have there, but are you going to see a shift in mindset, in succession planning, in positioning shipping in a different way to attract even better talent into the industry moving forward?
Yeah, I think we will, and that is already happening. And I think when we see the young executives there's much more focus on diversity, inclusion today, and also because we have to face the fact that we need new type of competences and skills driven by the transformation of the industry, which we have been talking about already. So it is happening, and we have to remember that the new generations, in 10, 15 years time, they're going to take up 70% of our workforce. So if we don't start listening to those talents and their concerns, I think we're going to lose out. So definitely it's happening, Sean.
Before I come on to Clare and Tanja, Raal, let me get your thoughts on this, because as the industry changes and the demands change, so the needs for upskilling and positioning, shipping to be at the cutting edge. How before, rather than going into all the details of all your programs, all the rest of it, what are you hearing from the industry? What are they telling you that we need to have in place to make sure that we have a workforce that is dynamic and cutting edge?
Well, I think it's I think fundamentally just to rewind slightly, I think what's coming under pressure and what I think is leading to a lot of the discussions we're having is that pipeline coming ashore from being at sea. And when I started 20 years ago, there were a lot of, say, ex-engineers in the business there who'd been at sea maybe 20 years ago, but things hadn't changed dramatically in that time, really. Whereas now, if you say somebody's been ashore for 10 years, they would see a very different picture. We're also seeing people, sadly, not spending enough time in the industry. So, I mean, we didn't get onto this, but I think the key to succession is, or one of the key factors there is retention. If we don't hang on to people and they develop and then they can't go into those roles. So seeing people, especially the knowledge capital that it takes to get them to a point of being a competent seafarer, let alone some of these key positions on board, if we don't hang on to those people, we're going to have a problem. So what we tend to see is a lot of people looking for creative solutions to sort of upskilling quickly people without necessarily having the expert available to them to be able to pass that knowledge on. So I think we'll see, much more sort of centers of excellence around specific topics, particularly some of these new fuels and new technologies, because there's less people with the knowledge capital to be able to share to create that. So a lot of the discussions, in answer to your question without pushing any products, is about that. It's about how do we kind of get people there faster and get people in, find creative ways of training people from perhaps a smaller number of experts. But the other thing that I think is also happening, which I thoroughly applaud, is people looking for bringing in the behavioral competencies into this as well, because I think one of the key things to succession and to be able to designing a program of succession in such a complex industry, things like competency management have been around a very long time, where you're actually looking at every skill level and you're saying, well, to take this position, these are the competencies that you need. I think that's very welcome and will become increasingly important. But the introduction of behavioral competencies gives us another dimension to that as well, because increasingly we're seeing the need to manage, particularly on board, but also in organizations ashore as well, and part of the shore team, how you actually manage how people behave, how they lead, how they communicate, how they build that culture, which ultimately is a big determiner in whether people stay with the company and within the industry. If we design, if we design fulfilling careers for people, and good working conditions, atmospheres, then that's got to be a good thing in terms of looking at creating that pipeline through.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very important point there, and also about the whole issue about the fuel aspect, because the debate at the moment, what fuel, is it going to be ammonia, is it going to be whatever? And, there's so little knowledge about these areas, and let alone training the crew to actually, put these things into effect and what have you. Let me bring Clare in on this, because one of the points that you said, we need the skills and we need the talent, and the obvious question that I'll throw back, how do we attract them in, because this is a key element here. But also you said, let's not forget the people who are still there, the engineers and the structure there that's in place. How do we sort of bring that together in light of things like new fuels, things like we've got to be driving forward at an aggressive level? How do we square that circle, as they say?
Thanks, Sean. Really good point. And I don't know if I've got the answers, but to contribute, I think shipping industry has a huge opportunity in terms of purpose. What we're doing, why we exist, and the role we continue to play for a sustainable future is huge. And when we think about attracting talent, this is every conversation I have with people who are looking to join this industry or grow their careers in this industry. And that really will help us to attract people compared with other industries. And we really have to raise our game on the potential, what we're doing, how we're contributing. What's letting us down a bit, I fear, is pace. When we talk about real talents who are absolutely committed to purpose and making a difference for the future, they want pace, they want to see progress, and we can be slow. So that would be the challenge I would continue to throw to us, is about how we challenge how we do things, and that we offer some more dynamic opportunity in coming and joining an industry which is really future focused and handling those challenges for the future. Alongside that, Michael made some comments about how do we build succession strategy. I would add pillars to that, which are build, buy, and move. So we talk about, building capability internally. How do we make sure we're growing people in the organisation? And whether that's through your performance review process, your assessments that you put in place, the development managers help and support mentoring, whatever that is. We also buy. We know at times going to the external market, talking with people like Martin, and finding additional skills to bring to the team is a really critical element of that strategy. The third point, which we're really trying to put some movement into in our organisation, is move. To build strong succession, to build talent in your organisation, you need to move people, you need to challenge them, you need to keep articulating and finding different areas of their capability. So move for us is around, succession is not just a linear experience. It's not just about going through these career steps, ladders. I think, traditionally some industries have been extremely successful with that, but that really isn't how today's working experience offers itself very easily. It's really about moving across an organization and gathering a collection of experiences. And we look for those experiences to build robust, resilient, thoughtful, diverse leaders. And people will be successful in different areas and struggle in different areas. So I think if we can look at purpose, pace, how we build, buy and move people in an organization and really bring that conversation to managers so that they're having those conversations with their teams that will make a difference. And could I make one final point to build on Raal's point around what are we looking for in terms of capability? When we talk about potential in our organization, these are the factors we look at. We look at ambition. What is their ambition? Do they want to grow? How do they want to grow? Learning agility is critical. Can they keep learning in different scenarios, different situations? This industry has to move with pace. Resilience, can they pick themselves up when they get knocked down, and how do they build that resilience? Can they manage through ambiguity? Goodness knows, we just touched on alternative fuels. The answers are varied, multiple, everything is yes at the moment. How do they manage and take others through ambiguity? And can they see the big picture? Do they really understand purpose, where the industry is heading, and helping to get people on board? That's what we're looking at in terms of potential. There's nothing there that anchors you to maritime. It's about that capability build, and that's your potential. So there's some few thoughts about what we're really looking for to build succession in our people.
Thank you, Claire. Before I bring in Martin and Kuba, I do just want to get Tanya's view on this, because you're new to the industry, you're coming in from a different angle. From what you're listening to, what you've been hearing, is shipping able to do all of this? It's an established industry. It's highly fragmented. We've got big companies that are driving forward, and they've got HR programs in place that are very agile. You've also got small ship owners who still operate on paper ledgers and stuff like that. Or managers or brokers or whatever. What are your thoughts? You talked about your four categories there of psychology, legal, financial, and tech. But what are your thoughts about shipping's ability to react to all of this?
Well, first of all, I think that any industry is capable of change. The question is, at board level, is it something that you want? Do you want it infiltrated? Do you want change in your business? Do you want to build it in? Because one of the barriers to succession planning is time. Is it business critical? Is it seen as being business critical? And how are you, if it's not business critical, then obviously it's not going to be a priority. Then you've obviously got the question or the barrier, the need for performance management. And how do you, if you don't have it, then how do you introduce it? What does talent look like in your particular organization? One thing that's very interesting when you look at all the literature, because obviously, yes, I am the HR director, and I will always refer back to kind of my educational background, which is psychometrics. When you're looking at predictors of talent, the two greatest predictors is not so much experience, which means that anything can be transferable from industry to industry, but it's actually aptitude. So how quickly can candidates or your employees change, adapt to new situations? And then you've also got personality and behavior. Personality is obviously influencing behavior. So how open are you to new experiences, mentoring, etc.? But kind of going back to it to the board level, it's understanding that your employees need to be engaged. You need to be communicating. What I was hearing from Kuba earlier, at the exit interviews is, I didn't know that Danes speak Danish with one another. Things like, do I need to learn Ukrainian? All these things. So if there's open communication and the expectation is there, you're looking after that talent pool and you're retaining them and having these open, honest conversations. The other aspect, kind of on the employee engagement side, is obviously when people are coming into the organization, so the newbies, is you are nurturing them from day one, that there is a clear path. People want to know that, you know, they belong to something and that there is purpose. So.
Oh, brilliant. Tanja, thank you very much. Guy, I know you've got to leave in a couple of minutes' time, but do you have any sort of comments to make to what you've been hearing here?
To be honest with you, it's one of those webinars I'm listening very intently, and I think what Claire and Tanja are saying is absolutely amazing. So that's what I've taken out of that. I've taken some real learnings from that. So other than, I think it's been a great conversation and a great debate, and it's such an important subject. I think I'll leave it at that for the moment. Thank you very much for allowing me to join this panel.
No problem at all, and thank you very much for your time today. And we've actually one's going out, one's coming in. Torsten Pedersen from CEO from Seasan. Torsten, thank you very much indeed for coming on board. I know it's very early in the morning your time, and we'll get your comments just in a second on the whole issue of succession. Kuba and Martin. Martin, let me come on to you because I haven't heard from you for a couple of minutes. You've got your hand up. You wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, but there's so much, as Guy said, there's so much to talk about and so many good points raised. So it's almost, Raal talked a while ago about mindset and mind shift changing and what's needed there. Claire mentioned industry raising its game, and we see this and almost, maybe it's a question I have, but it's the joining the shipping sector mid-career seems to be one of the hardest things to do, because of, and Guy's gone now, but it's so common to come from sea and then to come ashore. So it's very difficult, and we've got to change that mindset. How do you join the sector if you haven't been at sea? And I know this is a debate for a long time. Me and Kuba have argued about this for years. If you want to come into the industry as an outsider, that's a really hard thing to do. So then you need the hiring managers and the leadership team to change their mindset. They've got to be open-minded to hire differently. And then obviously if you hire differently, you've got to go with those new ideas and fresh ideas and support the change. So maybe it's a question, but I see, I do see the sector really, it is hard to join mid-career. So all the points are really well raised, but that was all I wanted to say, how hard we see it.
Thank you, Torsten. Let me get your comments before I come on to my friend Kuba, and thank you very much for staying up and coming in to talk to us today. I mean, we've been talking about the whole issue of succession planning here and how, the shipping it isn't getting it right, and there's a lot of issues here as far as, it's a management thing rather than necessarily than an HR thing. But what's your perspective on this? Because shipping does need to drive forward, to attract the right people in and to actually continue to be sustainable as it moves forward. And that revolves around the people it has in its employment. What are your thoughts?
No, but first of all, I'm sorry for dialing in a bit late here, but obviously, yes, it is a management thing. Talent management and succession planning is a board issue and a C-level issue rather than an HR issue. And that's probably the first step that shipping companies have to acknowledge, that traditionally it's been something that you've left to HR and to your fleet personnel or crewing function. But it is. We are fighting a tradition. We are fighting a tradition, as was said, that most land positions have also been filled with people who have been at sea. And as shipping, in the container shipping sector, as that has developed, more and more positions and more talents and capabilities are required from elsewhere. So I think equally to succession planning is capability planning. What do you need to operate and successfully a modern shipping company? You do need the technical expertise, you do need the know-how, but you are certainly equally required to have your financing, your IT expertise, your process excellence expertise to drive a successful business. And I can see that even if you look at our commercial team, is spread with the with qualifications and capabilities from all trades of life. And that's what we're discussing at board meetings. That's what we're discussing at weekly, bi-weekly C-level meetings, and what we're following up on. It's a strategic priority.
Guy mentioned earlier about, it's difficult getting people into shipping, but once you're in shipping, you never leave, and and we see that all over the place, and it's a lovely thing to have. But however, when you talk about looking at more and more of the positions being filled from outside of the industry, is that a challenge, or is that an opportunity, or is it both? Because shipping is unique, isn't it? And and you do need to have a certain element of understanding and of how the industry works. But what are your thoughts on that?
But you'll need to know in any industry. I think we've been good at telling ourselves we are unique because we have certain legislation around the way we work. But take any given industry, and an industry insider will say that industry is unique. There are certain things in shipping that makes it special, but I think it's just as much a matter of that we as leaders in shipping have traditionally chosen for the safe route, which is take people in who have grown up in our companies from business and onwards. And yes, they are still required. Some of the best leaders we have a long glory career on board the vessels, but as any other industry, you need different capabilities and need different qualifications to make it all work in unison.
Kuba, let me bring you in, and thank you for waiting. And I'm going to chuck in a little question for you as well. I know you want to respond, and it ties in with what Torsten's saying there. But we've seen even within the ship management sector, the need to employ more and more superintendents coming in. I think we touched on this yesterday when we had a chat, whereas before they would be chief engineers, retired chief engineers coming ashore, or masters or whatever. There's been a real push to employ people skilled in administration and stuff like that, but they lack that empathy. There's a view that they lack that empathy. Please respond with what you wanted to say earlier, but also maybe give me your thoughts on that as well, because that's quite an important issue.
Okay, sorry, I know that discussion drifted away, but I wanted to make a comment regarding recruiting new talent and attracting new talent. And new talent, I think we've got something really beautiful to sell. If you look at COVID, and if you look around ourselves, so many industries folded, so many industries had really problem. What did we do? We flourished. Shipping industry, we are not having the same problem any other industry. We did have a problem during COVID. We were managing those issues. Yes, they were issues. We had a problem because air industry collapsed. We couldn't change our seafarers. We couldn't send them. Did we say give up? We are putting ships ashore. We are not doing anything? Absolutely not. So look at our resilience. I think that could appeal to many, many people. Sometimes we are slow, but I think because we are slow, that's why we are very resilient. That's why we are able to do things. So I would say, let's map what makes us so special, what makes us so good, and then sell it to the world and say, guys, if you want to join the best, here we go, shipping industry for you. Now, answering your question, Sean, I think, and I'll call a spade, everything is money. If you are a chief engineer today or shipmaster, you are earning pretty good money. Do you want to go for half salary ashore? No, nobody would do that. So why should I? Do you want to know how much we are paying seafarers nowadays? You go on any Facebook, all of a sudden now you can check how much we are paying. So chief engineer is paid 10,000 plus. If you are going to work ashore, are you going to take 10,000 a month? No. Even in London, we are paying 85,000 a year. And then you have to pay a tax on it. Who, chief engineer or master, is going to go ashore for that? Sorry, no. And that's why there is a push, because owners want ship managers to employ superintendents. We need to employ them as well. So who can we take? We can take maybe third engineer ashore, or we can go somewhere and bring naval architect and tell her, then he is good enough to actually manage. But manage what? Not ships. They manage chief engineers. They manage alpha males who are not going to take no for response. And that's where the problem lies. That's all from me. Thank you.
Torsten, let me just bring you a little bit on that, because I mean, this whole issue about the ICS have already been saying that 2024 we'll see a shortage in seafarers. And indeed, if you go back to the previous financial crisis, or the shortage back in 2008, 2009, a lot of poaching going on. Filipinos would normally be at sea for 20 years. We're going ashore after 10 years. They wanted to be with their families. They could buy a business and what have you. They had the money to do it. And you're quite right, Kuba. Filipino captains of LNG carriers were on 6 times the salary of the president of the Philippines at the time. Torsten, are you worried about a shortage of seafarers? Are you worried? We're going a little bit away from succession planning, but it's worth asking that question to you.
No, but there's a succession planning also in being able to fill positions, right? And I think we have work to do. Kuba will probably have the exact statistics, but I'm sure that is it 5% or less of the global seafarer population are women, and we have just not been good enough. It's half the global population, and we've just not been good enough at making it attractive for women to go at sea. And it is. I'm not advocating that we sort of start picking women selectively, but we need to make the intake pool much bigger. When we see how many applicants we have who are women, it's a very small minority. And we need to make it, one, as an industry, a lot more attractive, safe, etc., for women to go to sea. And that has to start already at the academies, and promoting shipping away from being seen as a male dominant, by, as Kuba would say, alpha males, and male dominant black dirty industry, which it no longer is. So there's a great opportunity in getting women out to sea.
Thanks, Torsten. I'm going to bring in Clare and Michael, because Clare had not there. And I think even just touching on that point about, I'm very, very pleased to see, and the industry is really starting to adopt DEI in a very, very big way now. And even there's a lot of complaints that the S in ESG is not being really fully understood to a certain extent. But Clare, in light of all of that, what are your thoughts?
Exactly the point I was moving towards. When we think about succession, having in mind diversity, equity and inclusion, DE&I, whichever combination you're talking about in your part of the industry or organisation, is another really key and critical way forward, because what it forces you to do is to move to open-mindedness. And we really need this when we're thinking about succession for the future, because what we looked for 10 years ago, even maybe 5 years ago in terms of succession, it is changing and has changed. So we have to keep an open-mindedness of what the future needs, what are we preparing people for, and what does it take to get there. And, we all know, and Guy alluded to this earlier, it feels safest to hire and develop in our own image. It makes us feel comfortable. It gives us a sense of comfort. I know what I'm dealing with. But if you really want to grow a sustainable, and I mean an industry that keeps a pace, things will have to look different in order that we can consider people's desire for flexibility these days, people's desire for opportunity. This job for life concept, which I grew up with even, and many of my peers in our organisation have experienced gratefully, this concept is very, very diminished in the marketplace these days. And surely we have people who say, I'm not looking for a job for life. I want opportunity, I want variety, I want challenge. So when we open up the DE&I conversation as part of succession planning, it's really amazing what we can find within our organizations, within our people. We know people go through different phases of life where actually I just need to concentrate on this at the moment. But in the future, suddenly they are able to consider their career differently, their opportunities differently. And if we close the door and we close our minds to what that looks like, we're really mining the potential we have in our organizations. And, to touch briefly on the conversation around gender in the industry, just opening up the conversation in our own company where, we have 26% of our global workforce is women. We have targets to improve that. We're working actively on that. But even just opening up those conversations with every female that we employ to say, what are your thoughts about the future? And people have been amazed, I say people, managers have been amazed to hear some of the content of those conversations because they've never asked the question. So that DE&I is about openness, removing some of the fixed models that have been really successful, to keep evolving them for the future. And that is a key to succession, making it successful in organizations as well, I think.
Thank you, Claire. Michael, you got your hand up, and I'll bring in Martin.
Yeah, thanks. No, I think Claire put a lot of my points forward already, but definitely, to just recap from my side, we need to start seeing talent management and succession planning going hand in hand. Succession planning is not a cost; it's an investment. A lack of a good succession planning and talent management is a business risk and will affect companies' performance, costs, and sustainability, in my view. So it has to be addressed, and not just in the HR departments as we talk, but actually through line of management responsibilities and board levels. I think attracting people to our industry, there are good stories out there, and actually in Denmark 11 years ago, the whole industry, maritime industry, came together in a campaign which they called World Careers. And this was heavily funded by money, addressing the public, driving up the public awareness of the opportunities career-wise, both sea and shore, within the industry. And that has been going on for 11 years now, where the industry are funding promotion campaigns, TV commercials, whatever, to drive the awareness and just showing what opportunities there are, a world of career opportunities. And that has dramatically increased the young people's interest in the industry. And today there is, a lot of young people going into the industry because now they know the industry and they can see there's a great opportunities for growth. So I just wanted to share that good story also. I know time is running here, Sean.
Thank you very much, Michael. And Martin, just your comments. Then I'm going to, we've got a question coming on the Q&A, but Martin, your thoughts.
No, and I'll keep it very short then. But really, I couldn't agree more with what Claire was saying. And as she was talking about the change over the 10 years, I had a statistic which I read in preparation, which I just wanted to share. But 85% of jobs in 2030 are yet to be created. And I just think that that's exactly what Claire was talking about 10 years ago. We talked earlier about digital, sustainability, and all these roles. What actually is going to be happening in 2030? What roles? What skills? And actually, maybe none of us know on this panel, but I just wanted to put that in, and couldn't agree more that what needs to change, and we need to avoid the bias hiring, the hiring in our own shadow. It's easy to hire people like ourselves, really easy. We're all guilty of it, but we've got to hire differently. So that's all. I'll keep it short.
No, I love you, Martin. So we have a question here from our friend George. I've known from George for very well. Directed to you, Torsten. Seasan has invested in the long-term planning, recruiting, promoting, and shipping, by championing programs like Adopt to Ship. But he's asking, is there a big difference, or a difference in a large ship owner being able to invest in long-term programs with school children rather than, say ship managers or I guess smaller ship owners? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't see necessarily that there's a big difference between how you approach succession planning and talent management as a ship owner versus a ship manager. If you have a sustainable company that has an attractive value proposition for employees, you can do either. Obviously, we have different positions around new building and technology on the ships that you would have in a ship management company. But if you run a company that's large enough to invest in these things and have it as part of a key agenda, then it doesn't matter whether you're a ship owner or a ship manager. We just have different positions in our company than a ship manager would have, and vice versa.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Torsten. I think really it's probably a good place to end there. We like to keep the debates sort of quite tight on an hour, because I do appreciate you all giving up your time as panelists and from all around the world, and I really appreciate that, and thank you very much. I thought today's debate was outstanding. Really good comments, and I'm certainly going to enjoy going through the video, typing up the notes, and really digesting what was said there. A lot of really good comments, and I'd like to thank all of you for your time, your enthusiasm, and taking part as you did, and I really do appreciate it. And I'd also like to thank all the participants coming in as well. As I said, today's proceedings have been videotaped, so it will be edited down. We'll have some nice opening sequences, and it'll look rather snazzy and what have you. And we'll all be sent as panelists a link to the debate to be put on the SMI website and sent out to all of the readers as well, and covered editorially in the next issue of Ship Management International. But if I can just say a final big thank you to all of you. Can't do it without you, and lovely to see you all again, and we'll see each other face to face, because that's what we do nowadays, which is good. So we're all looking forward to that. So thank you very much indeed, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.